Now, I know that we're all locked into the NDS and the commission. They've done a great job. We had 2 good hearings here. Everyone believes that we should be following that blueprint that we've established. And while, yeah, we're on the way to recovery right now, we still have problems out there. I mean, if we were to follow the NDS, that would be an increase for this 5-year, for the fit-up of between 3 and 5% increase over inflation. And this 750 doesn't do that. We're not quite there. So I think when your discussion, starting with that, is something that we kind of agreed on, you had to give in some areas that probably could have very well produced some risk. General, what would during that process, what things did you kind of either slight or change from what we had thought was going to be a good model and a blueprint to follow?
Yes, sir, and I'm aligned with the chairman who's testified as well to say that 3% allows us to stay even, 5% allows us to improve and modernize in both capability, capacity, readiness. In the trades that we
didn't do the 3% even.
That's right. So the challenges that we had, one of the places we didn't take risk was readiness recovery. Mm-hmm. And so what the Secretary talked about in terms of getting our maintainer shortage to 0 and ensuring that we're investing in people, we did not take risk. Where we had to take risk was in some areas of modernization, some areas of procurement, and some areas where we'd like to have bought more to get at that shortfall we have of the aircraft we need to go forward.
Yeah, and Secretary Wilson, someone's got to say this. We're in the middle of a budget thing, and if something should happen that we're not able to do this, and we had to go back, keeping in mind that we went through fiscal year 18 and fiscal year 19 as recovery years, but if fiscal year 20 comes up and we don't do we have to fall back to the BCA and to or a CR, describe to us what the result of that would be and how this would have impacted what we've already done in fiscal year 18 and 19.
Well, let me give you, with respect to the Budget Control Act and sequester, for the Air Force, that would be about a $29 billion cut. To put that in context, that would be 4 times as large as what happened in sequester the last time. So let me give you what that would look like. Now, sequester is kind of across the board, but what would the magnitude of those choices look like under the Budget Control Act? $29 billion. That would be no F-35s, cut all of the KC-46s, stop the B-21 program, no ground-based strategic deterrent, no research, development, test, and evaluation for any space system, most of the 4th and 5th generation modifications, and all of science and technology. Or $29 billion means all of weapon system sustainment, all flying hours, all base operations and airfield support, and all munitions together make $29 billion. I think you can see that that would be absolutely devastating in scope and scale. With respect to a continuing resolution, what that would mean is we've got 16 new military construction projects that wouldn't start, and 18 for current missions, military construction that wouldn't start. And we've got 89 research, development, test, and evaluation new starts in this budget that wouldn't start. So either of those would set us back significantly. Sequester at this point would be 4 times as bad as it was in the previous time that the Air Force went through it, and we are still recovering from a sequester that would be just 1/4 of the impact if we had to go through it again.
That's a frightening scenario, but I would agree with that. And you think about the progress that we made during that period of time, in the 2 fiscal years. You had mentioned the Tyndall and the Offutt, and we do know that there are some problems. And one of the things that has been discussed is cutting the 18,000 flight hours. You know, we went through that once before. And that turned out to be a disaster, and we changed our situation there. Does that look like one of the things that you think we might have to do in order to come up with the results that we're looking for?
Mr. Chairman, with respect to Tyndall, last week I had to hold back money for 61 facility modernization projects in 18 states because we still don't, we're cash flowing the damage to Tyndall. And just this year, the impact will be about $750 million. As we get further into this year, my options narrow further and further. If we get into May, we're probably going to have to stop the recovery at Tyndall, and that means an impact to flight operations there as well as to people who are going to continue to live and work in degraded facilities. We're going to have to, in May, sometimes stop a lot of aircraft repairs. We're going to have to ground some of our bombers if we don't get the supplemental to recover from Tyndall. If we get towards the end of the year and we've only got a month or so left, there's very few options that we have. So I'm trying to minimize the impact and give the Congress enough time to pass a supplemental. But if I get into that last month and I still haven't balanced because of the impact of the storm and we don't have a supplemental, yes, it will impact flying hours.
Yeah, well, my time's expired, but for the record, I'm going to ask a question as to where we are right now when we're talking about 48 F-35s and 8 F-15s. I mean, it seems to me we're getting back into the fourth generation that we're hoping to be out of, and then we remember so much, and sometimes in history we forget about the fact that what happened to our F-22s. It started out that was going to be 750, ended up being, what, 187, and we paid dearly for that ever since then. That was a huge mistake, should not have happened. So I'll be asking those questions for the record, Senator Reid.